Everyone, my name is Elijah, and this video is going to go over party diagramming. So to define what a party is, it is a quick sketch or diagram that explains the main concept of your building's layout or form. It can often be represented in plan, elevation, axonometric, or any view you are comfortable showing the concept of your building in. And we'll kind of see some examples later to help visualize what we're talking about. But before we move into that, a little bit of advice is you should make sure to focus on building a general party or concept before developing your project digitally. And that's because it's very easy to burn out when you don't have direction. For example, if you open up Revit and just start like modeling walls or the spaces without any kind of concept in mind, you get lost in trying to figure out like square footage, where your building should go, where the courtyards go, or stuff like that. So moving into examples, this is kind of like a very simple party process sketch where the designer takes a site, draws it out, and then kind of puts like squiggles or boxes through it just to kind of play around with how the form can interact. So this is an example of just more of like very simple squiggles and geometry, and this person is also describing the action that's happening behind this party. So this specific party is like a radial scheme with a missing spoke. So there's like rectangles revolving around a circle, but then there's one rectangle that's missing, and it'll probably be the main entry where people will enter the circle and can disperse into the spaces here. And then to move into some examples that I've done, this was part of a group project, but we decided to break down our party into kind of a process and show it through storytelling. So to kind of go over this one, we established like a set of axes defined by different points in the community of our site. We then take a parallel-esque geometry, overlay onto those axes, and then use that combined geometry to define where the program areas are going to go. And in turn, the spaces in between those program areas become circulatory space, and that ultimately makes up the footprint of our building. And we accentuate some of those axes through these thin walls over here. And then this is some of our process work. And then pivoting into the interpretive center, this is like some of my process work from my project. But as you can see, it's a very loose sketch, just kind of figuring out how I want people to see the space and how it should interact with the sites and stuff like that. And then one thing I would suggest doing before maybe moving into digitally documenting your party is just to take like a picture or a PDF of your site, print it out, take tracing paper, and then just overlay it and draw like these little 3-minute sketches of kind of like massing figure ground just to get your mind thinking. And this is something that I did within 3 minutes each, and it's just a very good way of kind of going over your process. And this is what I ultimately ended up with. So in this video, we'll be digitally making our party diagrams, and we'll create a couple of them. We'll go over the processes and also underlaying our site so that we can draw our party on it. And we'll use Photoshop. So this is kind of what you can expect to make. And we will create a board like this. But yeah, let's jump into our video. Okay, so let's say you've drawn up or you have an idea of what you want to do for your party. Okay, 3, 2, 1. So I have Photoshop open, and what I'm going to do is make a new 11:17 file. And it's like this tabloid thing over here, just make it landscape and press create. I'm also going to open up a blank copy of my site just so I have a nice little reference for my Parti. So I have this, and I'm going to copy over the layer into my empty page, just like so. And I'm probably going to reduce the size a little bit, and just stick it in the middle. And then I'm going to title this layer Site, and just lock it down. So after that, we have a nice little template that we can, start making our geometry off of. And the point of this is just to make something like very graphically quick, just to get your mind thinking. But yeah, so one of the most important tools that I want to emphasize is this shape tool. Now with the shape tool, you can make like shapes. You can adjust the color of those shapes by adjusting the stroke and the fill. So if I wanted to do like an orange fill with a black outline, I could do that. And then I could adjust my stroke and also the type of that stroke. Another thing we want to pay attention to is when we make a shape, it comes up with a couple options here. And this is like you telling Photoshop how you want those shapes to be created. So if I select the shape tool and I click off into my space here, you notice that it creates a new layer for me. If I were to select any of the other options like pixels, I would have to create a new layer and title it like rectangle, and click off to the side here, and that creates my rectangle for me. By clicking pixel, it creates like a pixel kind of shape thing here. So if I wanted to add onto the shape, I would have to select pixels and then just click off into the side here, and that adds onto my shape. And it creates like a one whole thing. So if I wanted to recreate the same shape using the shape options, it would create two different layers for me instead of one. If I wanted to join them, I would either have to select both of these layers and click merge shapes, or just stick to this kind of method here. So now that we've kind of gone over the shape tool, we're going to draw a little bit of our Parti. So for example, if I wanted to start off with a rectangle here, or maybe a square, I can just draw on my site. For now, I'm just going to keep it like a black fill, and maybe bring my stroke down to like a very small. And we can start playing around with it. So maybe if I wanted to use like this kind of subtraction method for carving into like my black square mass here, I would rasterize my layer to change it into a pixel format so that I can subtract from it. So if I wanted to subtract from it, I would use this polygonal lasso tool, make sure my layer is selected, and just kind of like click off into here. Maybe we're carving out a little entry area for people to come into my interpret center. Just like that. Now, one thing I probably want to mention before is you want to keep your process in steps. So something I like to do is just copy my previous Parti and throw it off to the side here, and we'll kind of arrange it into like a step-by-step design storytelling diagram. So this is going to be my second step, and I'm going to recreate that subtraction that follows along my path of travel, like so. I'm going to delete it from my layer here, and before anything gets out of hand, I'm going to title it Step 2. Step 1. Sometimes the lasso tool messes with you, so you just kind of have to like complete the shape and deselect it. But yeah. So now that I have this, maybe I want to add some more masses to my party here. So maybe I want to create a mass that follows along this road here so that it catches views of the American River. So maybe what I'll do is create another shape, having selected the shape tool, and just draw like a rectangle off here. I'm going to rotate it so it's parallel to that road. Then maybe what I'm going to do is change the color of this one to like a red color, just so that it's easier to see. And maybe this could be like a second floor element. Maybe you can also change the opacity so that it's a little bit easier to see underneath. Then what you could do is take this one, or select the both of them and create a group out of them. And we can label this step 3. So we're also going to label this step 2. And then yeah, we're going to repeat that process again of copying over our previous step into this side here, and we'll continue developing. So maybe you also want to add a bit more fragmentation into this existing mass here. So to do that, I'm just going to select these little geometries and bring them out of the folder here. Cool. So now that we have our third step completed, I'm kind of backtracking, but like, let's say you want to fragment more of this mass. So what I'm going to do is combine both layers and make sure they're rasterized, which they should be. I'm going to add some more subtraction here. So maybe we want more of a central area here. So I'm going to use the lasso tool over here to maybe carve out more of a space and just select it and just remove it. After our fourth step, I'm going to copy it over and continue working. So maybe our last and final step is adding one last second mass that maybe also follows along the road here. So I'll just rotate it to be parallel with this aspect. I'll make the fill red and then the stroke red as well. And maybe I'll make 2 of those masses. I'll change the opacity to maybe like a little bit of a more transparent value. And yeah, that's kind of my 5th step. So you want to make sure to organize it as well. And if your layers get too chaotic, you can always group them together and label the correct steps. So my step 5 here can all be selected as one. And just moves off to the side. So let's say you have a bit of your process completed, and if you want to clean it up a little bit, you can create a new 11 by 17 and just paste it into this empty sheet. So I'm going to take all of these steps, Control C and Control V, and then I can start arranging them. Maybe I want to make space more um, for more party like storytelling diagrams. So I'm going to reduce the size of these ones. And if I just select them all and just kind of like bring them down here, they all scale uniformly. And I can continue arranging my masses here. Cool. I can also use the text tool to kind of label them how I want. So maybe this is step 1. I'll change the font to maybe like 30. And I'll just copy over this text. So what I would also do after completing like this specific step is just group them into a single group and just title it Party 1. Now I can go back into my site here, and what I'm going to do is craft a couple more parties, and I'll just speed up the video and just show you my process, and then in the end I'll show you a complete kind of diagram step. All right, cool. So now that I've created 2 other diagrams, we kind of have like a beautiful collage of processes for our 3 objects or parties. And what's especially useful about doing it in Photoshop is that, as you saw, the idea of or like generating shapes is much more easier, and just kind of to get like your mind thinking is just kind of like copying over your previous work, saving it, and then generating something new on top of that work. But yeah, and of course, one of the last things is we want to make sure to save our progress, probably as a Photoshop PDF, and in our schematic design folder, just title it like 250825 party diagrams. Then I'll save that PDF, and then yeah. So I hope this video gave you some ideas on what you could be doing for creating your party. But just know that like it's a very fluid process. You don't want to tie yourself to a single design, but eventually you'll find something that you're comfortable with running on. But yeah, hope to see you in the next video.